I gain control of people's minds through the habit of procrastination. I encourage them to put everything off until tomorrow.
Mr. Hill, that opening statement, it's quite arresting. To frame procrastination not just as a bad habit, but as the primary tool of, as you put it, a force of evil for controlling the mind. Why? What gives it that immense power?
A fundamental question, Dr. Sinclair. Because procrastination is the seed from which all failure grows. You see, in its simplest form, success is a straight line, from a clear decision to a tangible result. And the only thing that breaks that line, the only thing that stands between a person and everything they desire in life, is that habit of postponement.
So you believe it's the greatest obstacle, greater than a lack of money or resources?
Far greater. Because money and resources, those are effects. They are the results of prior actions. But procrastination, that is the cause itself, the root cause of non-achievement. People will dream for hours, they will plan for days. But when the moment of action arrives, the moment they must take that first simple step, a voice whispers in their mind, "Start tomorrow. You're tired today. You're not quite ready. Let conditions be more favorable." That is the voice of procrastination. And willpower, a resolute will to silence that voice and take that first step, is the only true antidote to this poison.
I agree with the principle, of course. A resolute will is a foundational pillar. No great work is built without it, but, Mr. Hill, I feel the world I inhabit is vastly different from yours. You lived in an era where the greatest distraction might have been the telephone ringing or the postman at the door. I live in a world where, at any given moment, thousands of companies are vying for a single second of my attention. Notifications, a deluge of emails, social media feeds that are, in essence, a constant, unending performance of perfect lives.
I see. Go on.
And that brings me to my central question. Is what we call procrastination today always just laziness? Can it truly be fought with willpower alone? Because the people I speak to, you see, they aren't lazy. They're brimming with ideas, but they're also wrestling with anxiety. They're crippled by perfectionism, a deep-seated fear of failure, a fear that the final product won't live up to the glorious vision in their minds. Is simply telling them to have more willpower enough to overcome these profound psychological barriers? Isn't that a bit like telling someone caught in a sandstorm to simply run faster?
A sandstorm. A striking metaphor, Dr. Sinclair. Quite striking. So you're suggesting the enemy isn't always a lumbering giant of sloth. At times, it is an invisible fog of fear and doubt that holds us in place.
Precisely. A fog that keeps us from seeing the very next step. So we remain still, terrified of tripping over an unseen stone. Mr. Hill, among the thousands of people whose lives you analyzed, did you ever encounter someone trapped in that very fog? Someone who, to the outside world, seemed willful and brilliant, but was, in truth, a prisoner to this very fear of imperfection.
Yes, there was one. A young writer. I recall the fire in his eyes when he first walked into my office. He spoke of an idea for a book, an idea he believed could transform millions of lives. The details are unimportant now, but the idea, it was incandescent. I told him myself it was worth a king's ransom.
And you presumably encouraged him to begin at once?
I urged him not to waste a single moment. He left my office that day, and I was certain I would hear news of its publication within months. A year went by. Nothing. 2 years. Then 3. 5 years passed, Dr. Sinclair, and not a single word of that great book had yet been written.
5 years? So what happened? Was he lazy? Perhaps the initial passion had simply faded.
No, and that is what makes the story so instructive. I sought him out again, spoke with him. The passion was still there, burning just as brightly. In fact, the idea had only grown more brilliant, more refined in his mind over those 5 years. He wasn't lazy. He thought about his book every single day.
Then what was the problem? If he wasn't lazy, if he still believed in his idea, what was holding him back?
The very same fog you described. Fear. He was afraid. Not of failure in the conventional sense. He was afraid that the book on the page could never be as perfect, as flawless as the book that existed in his mind. He had made the idea so monumental, so sacred in his imagination that he was terrified to create its real, mortal counterpart. It was analysis paralysis. The fear that his first sentence would not be grand enough. And that fear had kept him at a standstill for 5 long years.
Analysis paralysis, the fear of imperfection. Mr. Hill, those are the defining anxieties of my generation. Truly. So what did you do for him? How did you break that spell?
It was then that I arrived at a new understanding, Dr. Sinclair, an insight that would come to shake my entire philosophy. We had been going about it all wrong. We were trying to fight procrastination itself, when procrastination was never the disease. It was merely a symptom, like a fever. You do not fight the fever itself, do you? You search for the infection that causes it. Procrastination was the effect, not the cause.
The effect, not the cause. That changes everything. So what was the infection? The true cause?
And when I looked deeper, I found that the infection, the true cause, is almost always one of 3 things, or a combination thereof. First, that writer lacked a powerful why.
No why? But you said he believed his idea was brilliant.
He had an intellectual belief, but not a burning desire. His why was not yet fused with his emotions. It needed to be a reason so powerful that the thought of it would rob him of sleep. For him, it was merely a good idea, not a mission. Second, he lacked a clear how. He was fixated on the final destination, write a book. That is an insurmountable mountain. He lacked a definite, detailed plan to break that mountain down into manageable hills, and then into single, liftable stones.
And the third route?
And third, the most powerful root of all, fear. The fear of criticism, the fear that others would read it and say, this is it. This is what we waited 5 years for. That fear watered the other 2 roots daily, making them stronger.
So we have been fighting shadows all this time. We thought the problem was the monster of procrastination standing at the door, but the monster was never the real enemy. It was the invisible chains on our own feet. The chain of a weak desire, the chain of a vague plan, and the heaviest of them all, the chain of fear. We weren't curing the disease, we were just trying to suppress the symptoms.
Precisely. You do not fight procrastination. You identify its roots and you let them wither and die.
Let them wither and die. You know, your analysis, these 3 roots, they strike right at the heart of that digital sandstorm I described.
How so?
Think about it. The fear of criticism that paralyzed your writer has been amplified 1,000 times over today. In your time, the critic might have been a single journalist in a newspaper or a handful of peers. Today, the critic is the entire world holding a megaphone. The moment you release your work, it can be judged, mocked, or worse, completely ignored by thousands of strangers in an instant. It's no longer just fear of criticism, it's the fear of immediate global judgment.
Which can be infinitely more paralyzing. I understand.
And that second route, lacking a clear how, that's the great paradox of our time. Your writer was stuck because he didn't know how to start. We are stuck because we know too many ways to start. Hundreds of books on methodology, thousands of videos, dozens of apps. This bombardment of information, instead of lighting the path, often just creates a thicker fog. The very analysis paralysis you spoke of is fed by this information overload. We get so lost researching the best way that we never actually get on the way.
You have articulated the modern face of these ancient foes brilliantly, Doctor. The tools have changed, the scale has magnified, but human nature remains constant.
So you're saying the principles still apply?
More than ever. Fear is still fear, whether it comes from the ink of a critic's pen or the glow of a comment on your social network. Doubt is still doubt, whether it is born from a scarcity of information or a surplus of it. And the principles to overcome them, they too are constant, because they do not operate on the external world. They operate on the only thing over which you have complete control, your own mind.
So, your principles haven't become obsolete? If anything, in today's world of noise and distraction, they've become more vital than ever. They help us cut through the external chaos to see the internal roots that truly matter.
To see the internal roots. All right, so let's return to that poor writer, trapped in his fog of fear and doubt. Or let's return to the person watching us right now, feeling that exact same paralysis. What was your practical remedy for withering those roots? What is the first physical step out of that paralysis?
The remedy was not a direct confrontation. You cannot wrestle with fear or anxiety. That is like boxing with a shadow. The remedy was to bypass them. A simple 3-step system I devised for him. A system that no longer relies on your fleeting willpower, but on the enduring power of habit.
A system. I like the sound of that. Please.
Step 1. Clarity. I did not ask him to write the first chapter. That is a mountain, and the mind resists it. I asked him to define the very next step in a way that was almost laughably small. Do you know what it was?
What was it?
Insert a clean sheet of paper and type only the title of the book, nothing more. That is an action the mind simply does not fight. It is too small to be intimidating.
You make the fear irrelevant by making the step minuscule. That's brilliant. Step 2.
Step 2, the trigger. We assigned a precise time and place for this tiny action. Not, I will do it tomorrow, but tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp before anything else, you will sit at your desk and perform this one task. We took the decision out of the volatile realm of emotion and placed it onto the solid ground of a schedule. It was no longer debatable.
And step 3.
And step 3, the reward. I told him, the moment you have typed the title, before you even think of the next sentence, stand up, walk away, and brew yourself a cup of the finest coffee you own. It is a bribe for the brain. The brain learns to associate the action with an immediate pleasure. And that is what begins to turn the flywheel of a positive habit. Clarity, trigger, reward. That is all.
Clarity, trigger, reward. It's so simple, yet so profound. So, this entire conversation, it all leads to one final realization. Procrastination, as we've come to see it, isn't some great monster on our path that we must fight with the sword of willpower. No, procrastination is a thick fog. You cannot fight a fog with your fists. It's useless, absurd. But you can turn on your headlights. That ridiculously small first step, that is your headlights. It doesn't allow you to see the entire journey, but it allows you to see the next 10 feet of road. And so you drive that 10 feet safely, and then your lights reveal the next 10. And slowly, steadily, you drive right through the heart of the fog.
A beautiful metaphor, Doctor. Far more apt than a sandstorm.